All right, I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Shadows Podcast. I'm your host, Trip Bodenheimer, and I'm excited today to be joined by Jerry Dugan. He is the podcast host for Beyond the Rut. Jerry, how are you doing?
I am doing great, Trip. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and this is kind of a unique situation we found ourselves in here today because we got connected a couple of weeks ago by the amazing Shay Sparks, and we got in contact. We talked a couple of weeks ago, and then life happened. Some things came up, and we ended up getting kind of like reconnected last night on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was going through. I said, I need to get scheduled for his podcast, and I was trying to do all my catch up work for going on other people's shows or scheduling guests on ours. And I said, he's got an opening Saturday morning. I know it's really short notice, but let me at least check with him. And he's like, yeah, we can actually do both. So we just finished recording his episode, a little peek behind the curtains, and now we're here doing the episode of Shadows Podcast. So I'm out like I haven't talked to you yet. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah. Weather over here in Corpus Christi, Texas is awesome. I think I haven't gone outside yet, but I assume it is because it's Corpus.
Yeah,
doing well.
It's we had like a cold front come through Montgomery here the past couple of days, and it has been absolutely freezing. So I'm it looks like we're starting to get a little bit of good weather today. I get to do some yard work after this, so I'm super thrilled about all the pollen outside. But so Jerry, we're gonna go ahead and get started with some rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
You have no idea what questions are coming your way.
None.
First one. Something you are afraid to try.
Oh boy. Kind of two things. One is food that is still squirming and jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
I could do the airplane, but I'm very picky about my food. So I'm going to agree with you on that. If it's still moving, I'm not touching it.
Gotta stab it.
Not touching it. Even if I had to stab it, I'm still not going to touch it. What about traveling? You have 2 plane tickets.
Okay.
1 plane ticket you can return to anywhere that you've been before. The other plane ticket, somewhere you've never been to.
Okay. Returning someplace I've been to before, I would say Germany, because from Germany I can visit a whole bunch of other places.
That's what I tell everybody.
Yeah. Germany's like a hub for...
It is.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but I think they were, no, that's dark military humor right there. So I'll stop.
But we'll edit it.
Yeah. Well, go past that. But then the new place, kind of torn between 2 spots. I would say Antarctica for some reason, because I just want to build a snowman there and have a snowball fight, build a fort, and then maybe an igloo, and just kind of say Dugan was here, and then head home. Maybe see some penguins in the wild.
Yeah, I know Larry Fitzgerald, wide receiver for the Cardinals. He went to Antarctica, and he's like, the coolest thing was they, I guess when they stamp your passport there,
yeah,
it's actually numbered. Like you are the X numbered person to come here.
Wow.
And he was like, that was the coolest thing, is that you get like this unique identifier on your passport that you were the, 220,000th person to come through here. So that's pretty cool.
Do they have their own government? I
don't know.
It's a continent, and everybody just like, it's a multinational thing, but I guess everybody has their own claim stake to it.
Most people just think it's, like you said, igloos and snowball fights and polar bears.
Yeah.
Maybe the polar bears that drink Coca-Cola hang out over there.
I mean, Coca-Cola got that idea from somewhere. I think
yeah.
At least in fact.
Antarctica. So what book would you recommend to anyone out there? It can be anything. It can be Chronicles of Narnia. It can be great leadership books. What is one book you'd recommend everybody to read?
I'm gonna cheat again and recommend 2. So as a Christian, the Bible and actually reading it from front to back, or if that's too boring, start with the New Testament and then go back and read the Old Testament for context. But that's kind of the standard Christian response. You got to read the Bible. But a book outside the Bible, I think that has really impacted my life would be How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it just really gets down to what is it that people connect with, how do people resonate with others, and just it's a great reminder to remember people are people and treat them as such. And if you do that, then you'll see connections coming your way and success coming your way, all because You were just out there to make friends. And by doing that, you built the emotional capital to influence them.
Okay. You can have dinner with three historical figures. Now, they can't be family members,
Ah,
but three historical figures that are no longer with us. Who would you pick?
oh man, General Patton would be top of the list. Uh,
He'd be
just
yelling at you to
because,
eat your food.
yeah, just yeah, you got to have somebody at the table who cusses up a storm to make up for my not cussing up a storm at the table. So, and he just has like this bravado about him and a boldness, like a take action, but there's like genius behind it, and so there's that.
Weird visions too. Like he could foresee things that nobody
Yeah,
else could.
yeah, and I mean relating that to like Strengths Finder, if you're familiar with that, I
Yeah.
think a lot of that has to do with context. If he had,
Hmm.
if one of his strengths is context, the top five, then he has an ability to look at historical events, and he to him he's having a vision, but maybe on a more scientific level, he's able to look at historical events and predict possible, probable
Hmm.
futures based on historical events. And so but I think the movie portrayed him as actually having like past lives and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
There's a road down here on the left hand side. Like he could see all that. Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
so quite the imagination. Loved history, but then there was that bold action part, just
Yeah.
that snot nosed, get in there and fight type of mentality, and just to see that in person, I think would be very interesting. The second one would be George Washington. Um, the thing about him that I think impresses me the most isn't so much the military career and winning the Revolutionary War. It's kind of what he did afterwards,
Hmm.
the nation building part of it. Very intentional that when he had a portrait painted of him, that his sword was never in his right hand. That and that his sword wasn't drawn for battle. Like the sword was in the scabbard, held in his left hand. It's there, so he's a warrior, but it's not drawn. So it's showcasing more of his diplomatic side. And I thought that was very interesting that he was very diplomatic about that. Third, this one's a toughie because now it's like I got one choice left and so many people
Yeah.
to choose from. Uh,
Who's joining Patton and Washington at the table?
gosh, you know, Mother Teresa, I think, just to balance them out.
She's and you know what's funny? I did this with someone not too long ago, and there was two people eating dinner, and Mother Teresa was like the one to kind of oversee the table by that person also.
Yeah,
So she keeps getting dinner invites.
she does because she didn't need to have money to tell you what to do. She just kind of told you like God's authority, like,
Yeah.
no, you're not doing that. You're gonna take care of that person over there. You're gonna donate money to this cause. Look, this is the thing that's much more important, and I think she was much more grounded, not built on her own ego, but really about serving others. And whatever influence she had, she leveraged it towards helping other people.
Okay. Well, you survived the rapid fire round.
Nice.
So good
I
job.
win.
You win. Exactly. Exactly. You get an official Shadows mug coming your way.
Nice.
So yeah, we'll do that. So, all right. Tell our listeners, they have no idea who you are. So take us back to your upbringing, your childhood.
All right. So in 1972, a man named Bruce Dugan met. No, too far.
We'll fast forward past that.
Fast forward. Go past this. Never go back to it again. So
Actually, let me rephrase it. Where were you brought up, and then what were your early aspirations growing up? Like, what were some of the jobs? Where did you see yourself going career wise?
Nice. So I was born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I bring that up because it comes up later on. So born to a U.S. Army soldier. He was a military policeman. His name really was Bruce, and it still is Bruce, by the way. And my mom is an immigrant who married him. So she was from Thailand. They met while he was stationed there. So growing up, my dad, very laid back guy, which is weird because he's a military policeman. He's like interviewing people who've committed crimes, but he's always the good cop. And so I've got this dad who is just sort of like, what do you want to do in life, son? Because whatever you do from here, it's going to be better than what I did. So it's going to be your life. So that was kind of my dad's philosophy in raising me.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, though, being the middle child, the stereotypical tiger mom, was really big about you're going to be a successful son because you're an Asian child, and so so it was like she was planting seeds of what success looked like to her, and to her the American way of success was you're in the army, because all the people she met who were successful in the army, they were officers because they got paid more than the enlisted guys.
Yeah.
My dad was not enlisted. He was not an officer. He was enlisted. And then there were doctors. So like that still, like, because in everything you got to be a doctor to be successful, I guess, in different Asian cultures. So that was always being planted in my head. So growing up, seeing my dad in the army, having my mom say to me, I'm going to be an army officer. The only thing I saw myself doing was being an army officer, going to combat, being a soldier. And it wasn't until I got to, I'd say, high school that other possibilities popped up. Maybe I could be a police officer, but still kind of a narrow view. Then I got into music when I was in middle school, and through high school I was kind of, I guess, developed to play better. So my band director in high school got me private lessons. She got me into honors orchestras, lots of playing opportunities that got me to really love playing, of all things, tuba. And so I was getting recruited by colleges to perform, like play tuba and get scholarships and that kind of thing.
Wow.
And so I thought I was going to be a professional musician. Like, hey, I finally found something that's outside of you're going to be in the army, you're going to be a soldier, you're going to be a musician. And for some weird reason, I balked like the week before I go off to college, and I kind of balk at it. I'm like, I can't be a musician. There's no way you change the world as a musician, especially as a tuba player. I'm going to play like the polka that like saves the world. Like that doesn't happen. So I just kind of had this crisis of identity, I guess, and decided, okay, I got to do something noble. I'm going to be a doctor. So I go to school, and I'm a pre-med major, and I think I'm barely pulling a 2.0 through all four and a half years of college. And the weird thing was, like, with a 2-point-something GPA, you're not going to medical school. There's a lot more people out there who are a lot smarter, with a lot higher grades, a lot more dedication. And my faculty advisor said something to me that it didn't wake me up at the time, but he meant it to. And that was, he was pointing out that my GPA sucked. So I was already kind of put off by that. But what he was pointing out was that I was tutoring people who were getting A's and B's in their classes. The same classes I'm getting a D or an F in, I'm tutoring the people who are getting A's and B's. So maybe I don't want to be a doctor. So he picked up on the point that maybe I'm self-sabotaging. And, I've got the ability. I can do it. I'm tutoring people who are getting A's and B's. I'm helping people who have these breakthroughs and ideas. But then it's my turn at the test, and I'm bombing it, and so he's just like, maybe you want to teach. And I was like, no, the people who teach can't do. And
yeah.
So
it's like coaches in basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones who can't teach or coach. And it's like, no, that's not true. Like, teaching and coaching are skills within themselves. It takes a special skill set to pull that off, to help individuals learn from within themselves and excel and be motivated and find motivation from within themselves. And it takes some skill to do that. It's a different skill set than actually doing the thing you're coaching or teaching. Mm-hmm. So, but I didn't know that yet. That lesson came maybe a decade later. So 4-ish years go by in college, and I've got this 2-point-something GPA. They give me my degree. I take it and run because I'm worried that the school's going to change their mind and realize they made a mistake and take the degree
Been there,
back.
done that. Been there, done that.
So first order of business, let me get those transcripts in writing and let me get that degree. I'm out of here. Thank you so much. And I'll pay my bill.
And this was at Pacific, right?
Yeah. University of the Pacific in Stockton, California. So if you're familiar with California geography, it's about 3 hours from the coast. University of the Pacific, and it has no view of the Pacific Ocean.
Tigers, right?
Yep, UOP Tigers.
Okay.
Yep. Known for, I think we have the longest winning streak in football, but it's an old school record. Alonzo Stagg was the guy who had that.
Didn't they have Colgate? What was his name? The he was like the number 1 draft pick. In the NBA draft.
Maybe.
I can't, like 97, 98. I can't remember.
Aloha Candy? Michael Aloha Candy from Nigeria.
Olowa Candy. Yep.
tall dude.
Although
He
candy.
elbowed me accidentally on the top of my head once at a Big West
Hey,
conference. Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, because I'm 5'4", and the basketball team had just won the Big West conference title. Everybody rushes the court. I'm like, yeah. I don't know why. I act like I know Michael personally. And I run up and I give him a hug, and he looks down. He's like, yay. But before he noticed me, like his hands had come down from a ridiculous high
You
five.
got a Hulk smash.
Yeah. And I'm like on his right side, and bam, he just thunks me on the head. That's how he notices I'm there. And he looks down, and I think the guy thought he was hugging a child. And then he realized, wait, this guy's a man who's in my school. I recognize this guy. And really, really neat guy. Very nice guy. Very down to earth. He learned basketball while living in the UK. His dad was an ambassador over there at the time, and he was calling around schools, and people were turning him down. Like I think he called like Duke University and a couple other big schools. Told them like his sales pitch was that he was 7 foot tall. And
Down at zoo.
yeah. And so it turns out the basketball coach at UOP, whenever the head coach went out for lunch, he would turn to whoever was watching the phones that afternoon. Hey, make sure you stay awake because you never know when a 7-footer is going to call. And out he goes. That was his mantra every single day. And then
It's a pretty cool story.
yeah, and he'd say it for years. And then finally one day, an actual literal 7-foot tall guy from the UK called in. And he was like, hey, I'm just curious. Are you guys anywhere near the Pacific Ocean? And they're like, yeah, the name's University of the Pacific. What do you think? Flew him out there and gave him a full ride scholarship. At the time, all he could do was a hook shot. I think it took 4 years before he finally did a dunk. But yeah, I think he played for the Clippers.
Yeah, played for the Clippers for a while. I know we totally sidebarred there, but yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Pacific and I was like, hey, that had number 1 pick in the draft one year.
Yeah, got elbowed in the head by that guy.
So yeah, you said you got your degree in RAN.
Yeah, so bachelor's in chemistry biology, grabbed it, took off. But I was out of money. I wanted to travel, and I needed some skills to in the medical field to counter this 2-point-something GPA. So I just looked at my options, and the military was the way to go. Went to MEPS, got a 99 on the ASVAB, I think a 110 on the GT score. And the Army was the way I was going to go. Because if anybody had history and experience in trauma medicine, which was where I thought I wanted to go, it'd be the Army. They got 200 plus years of trauma and trauma injuries. They're good at it, both inflicting it and treating it. But they were more interested in trying to get me into infantry or armor and even like tank repair. And eventually I settled on being a medic and did a delayed entry program. They sent me off to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic training. So that's why I brought up earlier that I was born at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, because you're probably familiar with it. Wherever you go in the military, you got to do in-processing. And I'm there doing paperwork, and you get every form asks you birthplace, it seemed like. And it seemed like every time I got to that part of the form is when a drill sergeant walked by and noticed I'm writing Fort Sill, Oklahoma on the birthplace. And I would see this camouflaged arm come across over my shoulder and hear this booming voice say, "It says birthplace, dummy." And I didn't know any better. So like on day one, I'm like, this is where I was born. Excuse me? I'm like, oh crap, what did I say wrong? Did I say it in English? What? I only know English and maybe some German. And then they're in my face. You address me as drill sergeant. So everything you say is with drill sergeant. Yeah. And then they're like, that's the brim of the hat is like into my forehead. And so my head is tilted from the hat. And yeah, they're knife handing it, pointing me at my nose. And just the thing I messed up on was I didn't say drill sergeant for the first few days. But by then they knew who I was. I'm the guy that was born at Fort Sill. So it's real funny to make him do push-ups and then make his ID card drop out of his breast pocket so you can I confirm his birthplace. So I met a lot of drill sergeants in 9 weeks, and it was like they brought them in from like other companies just to get we're gonna fill out some forms. That's the guy. Like I don't know if that's what happened, but I did a lot. Every time we did forms, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be doing push-ups.
I have friends who are drill sergeants, and they played a lot of games with people. So it's a lot of that.
Gosh, there were 3 events on our PT test, physical fitness test. There's only one category of the 3 that I could max out. It was push-ups.
Just got good at it.
Yeah, I just got good at push-ups.
So you were in the Army for 4.5 years, and talk to us about the invasion of Iraq.
All right. So So at the end of my 4 years, my unit, I was in the 1st Battalion, 10th Field Artillery, and we got deployed to Kuwait, January of 2003. And at the time, I thought we're going to bluff Saddam Hussein. We've been doing this since the first Gulf War. He does something we don't like. We put a bunch of troops there. He backs off. We leave. So I thought we were really doing that. But then I just started to notice that we were adding more troops. Like, it wasn't just one division of troops, like 16,000 troops. Like, then we added the 101st. They showed up. And then elements of the 1st Armored Division showed up. And news stories of the 4th Infantry Division coming in through Turkey started popping up on the news. The Marines started popping up everywhere. And I started to realize, maybe this isn't a drill. Like, we're really beefing up. And this was like weeks before the actual announcement from President George Bush. But I remember my supervisor said to me, hey, Sergeant Dugan, if nothing happens in the next couple of weeks, I'm just going to go ahead and send you home so you can out-process. Unless you decide in the next 2 weeks you want to re-enlist. But if you don't want to re-enlist, I'll send you home. You can wrap things up, and then I wish you the best. So the 2 weeks go by. He says, all right, go ahead and pack your bag unless you want to re-enlist. It's like, no, I think I'm done. I didn't really get my career to advance like I thought it would. I apparently I smiled too much in the Army, and so I think now is just a good time to part ways. All right, well, you got until till June to change your mind. So this is like February of 2003. So I packed my bags, put it on a truck. The truck is going to go put the bags on a ship, send my bags back, and it's just a matter of getting orders to fly back and be reunited with my bags and my family. Like, a day or two goes by, and we're having a battalion formation. We don't really have the battalion's about 700 people. So that's the whole unit or the whole department. And we're gathering for this big formation, a ceremony. And as we're walking to it, I see the Humvee that I put my bag on, because there's a pyramid of duffel bags outside that truck. And I could see my duffel bag. And I'm like, that's my bag. And, I'm walking by it. I'm like, that's my bag. I put that on that truck 2 days ago. And everyone's just like, well, maybe we just couldn't get the travel orders to get them to the ship. I'm like, yeah, I hope that's the case. Okay.
Yeah.
Go to the formation. It looks like a re-enlistment ceremony. So we're doing all the things that go with a re-enlistment ceremony. The re-enlistment sergeant is out there reading the orders. But I start to realize there's nobody up there with him. Like, who's re-enlisting? Like, did we have the invisible man this whole time and I not realize it? Like, who is this guy? And then I hear it. He says, all personnel with an end of term of service date of in the year 2003 are now re-enlisted to a new end of term of service date of December 24th, 2024. And I was like, how long are we going to be here? like I realized this is a stop loss. And the year 2024, I was like, holy cow. Like, how long is this invasion and occupation going to last? And I almost freaked out, but I had to keep my bearing. And then I realized I just got stop lost, and you don't do those just for fun. Yeah. You do them because you're going to war. And so my concerns and fears were now coming true. I just went ahead and grabbed my duffel bag from the truck, took it back to my tent. And, I tried to call home, and, the phones at the time really sucked. So you only had like 10 minutes to call home at the time. But Camp New Jersey, where I was based with 3rd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, the phones weren't reliable for some reason. So out of my 10-minute block, I spent 9 minutes picking up the phone, getting no dial tone, hanging up, pick up, hang up, pick up, hang up, pick up, hang up. I finally get a tone on the 10th minute. I'm dialing, and some guy taps me on the shoulder, and it's the guy who's next in line, and he realizes I got a signal. And so he's giving me this like tech tip on how not to hang up when I'm done, so he could have a signal when he's done. And my wife's on the phone. I've got 30 seconds left. And, not a full 10 minutes. It's not 10 minutes from when I made a connection. It was 10 minutes total. And this Yahoo just ate up 30 seconds of my time. So finally I was like, soldier, you need to step back. I'm talking to my wife right now. Back off. And I get on, and my wife's mad because she just heard me talk to a random guy for 30 seconds instead of her. And I was like, Liv, I got 30 seconds to tell you I just got stop lost. And we roll out in about 2 weeks. I love you. And so she's torn, like mad and what? And she was in the army also.
Questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was in the army, so she understood stop loss enough and, when they're used and that kind of thing. So she, to this day is still torn between, she was mad that I talked to this guy for 30 seconds, but then blown away by this news I gave her that I'm going to war.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't hear from me for like another month now. Those were the last words she heard from me. Time was up. I looked at the guy and I hung up the phone. I was like, "You're a jackass." And off I go. I think I did one of those like shoulder bumps to the guy. I think we were in PT uniform, so I have no idea. This guy could have been a captain for all I know.
You went all with candy. You gave him a little elbow on the top of the head.
Man, I felt like if I was tall enough, I would have. But he was taller than me. But it was just like, you don't ever interrupt a soldier when they're on the phone. And I walked off. And I don't think I got cheered, but in my head, I was cheering that moment on. I felt like a victory. But a few days later, we're rolling out of our camp and preparing for war. And we're, getting those briefings and just like, we're going to shoot these towers. We're like, okay. And then we're going to drive through a minefield. And we're like, wait, what? And they're like, don't worry, we plowed lanes to them already, but they're only 3 lanes wide. So stay in the middle. If your vehicle breaks down or starts to break down, get off to the right or the left. If the vehicle in front of you blows up, don't follow them. And you're just like, what? They're like, but don't worry, the road has these big berms. You can't miss them. And we're like, the whole thing's just an open desert. How do we know that we cleared it? We taped it off. And like, wait, how did you plow these through if there are guard towers on the other side? Oh, we did it at night. And we're like, how do we know they didn't? And there's like so many questions. But yeah, March 19th rolled around. The artillery guys started firing their mission. And I just remember feeling very surreal about it. Like, we're finally testing our skills of what we could do as professional soldiers. But at the same time, I felt like I was robbing a store for the first time. I mean, I've never robbed a store, but like, am I committing a crime or am I doing something good for the world? And there was not too much time to think about that, because then we started shooting the first rounds and you just had to lock in. I'm a soldier. I'm a professional. I've got a job to do. And my job is to make sure that I bring as many of these guys home alive if any of them get hurt. And so, yeah, rolled through, got to experience a 3-day sandstorm in, where was that? On Najaf.
Those are always fun.
Oh, geez. It's so horrifying. Like one moment you see the horizon for like 30 or 40 miles.
Can't do anything.
Yeah. And then the next, the sky is red and,
can't breathe.
Yeah. It's just like you got this cough that won't go away, and sand gets into all your food. And it went from red to dark. And our night vision goggles didn't even work because the sand was so thick and infrared was useless. So, I mean, it was like being blind for 24 hours, just groping our way around the vehicle. And, going to the bathroom even was a challenge. Like, don't go too far, Doc. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna. It's you stay within one arm's. Like, you touched the vehicle while you did everything outside the vehicle. So, yeah.
Give our listeners an idea of what your journey was like between your time where you separated from the Army up until where you're at now with the podcast, which I want to talk about real quick.
Yeah. So I left the Army right after that invasion. So they did scale back the stop loss. It wound up being, okay, you can leave in November of 2003. And I still decided to get out. And the biggest drivers behind that were, one, all the letters I received, the encouragement was, hey, don't worry, we're taking care of your children for you. Don't worry, we're taking care of your son for your daughter for you. We're taking care of your wife for you. And it just kind of hit me like, wait, I'm supposed to be the guy there taking care of my family. And the thing keeping me from doing that is the job I love so much, which is being in the Army. And so there was decision time, and I got out. I'm still very proud of my service, and probably some things I would do more of if I could do it again, but I wouldn't not join the military. So the military did really hone in a lot of skills and insights for me that I still use to this day, almost 18 years later.
Yeah.
And so I get out, and I'm thinking I'll get a job as a medic. But it turns out with the certifications I have, they didn't quite align with my skill sets. So got the skill sets of a paramedic, but the licensure of an EMT basic. So instead of getting like $30 an hour, I'm looking at maybe $8.25 an hour. Driving only, and maybe CPR if somebody needs it badly enough. So my certifications meant I couldn't do anything other than drive. And so I had to think about that. What am I going to do to earn a living for my family? A company called Christus Spawn Health System was hiring for a trainer, and they were just looking for somebody who had a bachelor's degree, experience doing training sessions, and loved to talk. And I was like, I got all three of those.
Heck.
Yeah. So I worked there for about 3 years, 3.5, 4 years. My first job out of the Army. It planted the seed for what I do today. But I left there because I got a new boss. My boss fired me. So I went into real estate because at the time I was thinking I need some sales background anyway. I need to show that my skills can bring in revenue, not just spend revenue or create expenses. And so I thought real estate sales would be the way to go. Got in at 2006, bubble busted at 2007. 3 years later, I finally, got humble and said, okay, I need to leave this industry. It's not really what I was looking for anyway. I learned everything I intended to learn, but I do need to take care of my family. So, had a good conversation with my wife about, what skill sets do I have? What do I go back to school and learn about? And so we just realized that education and training was really kind of where I was gifted. I went back to school to get my master's degree in educational technology and instructional design. Meanwhile, I was working as a community educator for a battered women's shelter, and just combining those two together, rapid education development on a low budget, and then reaching an audience that really doesn't want to listen to your message. And so how do you bridge that gap? You've got some great information, a great lesson to share, but the audience really doesn't want to hear it. They think you're being accusatory. And so how do you reshape and reframe that so it hits home and resonates with them? So that was a very big learning lesson there. And then I started a podcast before Beyond the Rut. There was Family Time Q&A. I wanted to showcase healthy relationships. And that was a spinoff from the work I was doing at this women's shelter, that I wanted to demonstrate what true masculinity from a point of security and sense of self-worth came from, and what humility looked like. Strength through humility looked like. So being humble with my wife, being humble with my children, yet being firm in my values, and supportive to them. And that's what that show was for about 3 years. And a good friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, Jerry, I got an idea for a podcast. I want to reach men. And he just started to describe, I come across men as a pastor, and this is my friend Brandon saying this, and they have the same issues every single week. I'm struggling with my finances. I'm struggling with my job. I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling in my health. I'm given the same answers every single week. And I want to just record these answers and share it with the world so that I can reach more of these guys. And I can even refer them to these resources. And, we brought in a third guy, and 9 months later, we birthed a beautiful podcast called Beyond the Rut. And it's now 5.5 years later, 252 episodes published at the time that we're recording this conversation. And it's just been such an eye-opener for me. I've probably grown more from doing the podcast than anything else I've done other than the combat experience in the military.
And I think you and I were talking prior to recording when we talked a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about how a lot of podcasts, hardly make it past 8 episodes.
Yeah.
You guys are on 5.5 years. That is that you're about to start kindergarten, first grade at this point. You're doing really, really good. You survived the terrible twos and everything. So if they want to check out Beyond the Rut, where do you send them to?
BeyondTheRut.com. And
pretty simple.
Yeah. There you'll find a box that'll link you to all the different podcast players that we're on. You can subscribe to receive our emails. We send out twice a month. One email is just an article that I think will resonate with you and provide you with some how-to information. And then the second email in the month is a recap of all the episodes that we published that month and what's coming up for the next month. We also have a free tool called Measure It to Make It, because we realize if you want to have success, you got to kind of define what it looks like for you, map out all the milestones, and then take action. And that writing out of your goals and the milestones gives you a roadmap from point A to point Z, and it keeps you on track. And it gives you a chance to reflect and see things where you've had success, see areas that you may need to make adjustments. It's a free tool. Just go to beyondtherut.com/goals. Download it. You don't even have to, there's no gotcha. If you want just the tool, you can sign up and just take that. If you want the email newsletter as well, you can sign up and receive both. Yeah, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram.
Yeah, website's very well put together. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be on the newsletter pretty soon with an episode. So that's a big deal for me. Last question for you.
Yeah.
Looking back at your journey up to this point, what's the biggest thing you learned about yourself?
Not to take myself too seriously. So I've been humbled quite a bit. It's, I might have some intelligence, but I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I was an athlete in high school and sort of in college, but I wasn't the best athlete. So there's that, and I could always be learning something new.
Yeah.
And a bunch of lessons. Focus on my strengths. Leverage other people who have the skill sets where you're weak. Trusting folks to collaborate with them. So,
what final words do you have for our listeners?
Oh man, you only get one life, and it's too short to live it stuck in a rut. So if you feel like you're stuck in a rut right now, and you're on a path that you didn't think you wanted to be on, and you just don't see a way out, probably time to look up and look forward and see where the possibilities are for you, and where is it you really want to go, and make your own path towards that destination.
That's awesome. Well, sir, I can't thank you enough for doing this joint show that we did today, where we recorded one for each. Thank you for taking time. And folks, that is all the time we have for this week's episode of the Shadows Podcast.